We actually shot this next segment last week, but didn't get a chance to run it because of some programming changes. So here it is, our conversation with former Lieutenant Governor Michael Fedele and Patrick Scully of Scully Communications. Michael Fedele served as Lieutenant Governor with Governor Rell from 2007 to 2011, and he is now back in private business. We understand traveling to Europe, getting international business done. Governor, thanks for being here.
Laura, it's great to be back here again.
You know, I think the first thing, because as soon as people see you in promos, they're going to say, oh my gosh, he's announcing for the U.S. Senate run.
Yeah. I am not announcing. No, you know, it's kind of interesting. You know, people have asked me that with the opening, and I remind them that if you look at my political record, I've never run because there's an opening. This has never been a career for me. I've always done it because I felt there was something I could lend to the discussion or solution. So in the U.S. Senate race or anything else that comes up in the future, if there's something I can lend to the discussion or a solution to it, I'd be open to looking at it. But right now, I'm enjoying being back in private life, spending time with my family and my business.
Great. And is there anything you can lend to the discussion going on at the Capitol now?
Well, you know, I'm very disappointed with where we are. You know, right out of the chute, we see a revenue increase, taxation. And, you know, we heard the term shared sacrifice. And actually, the only people who have sacrificed are taxpayers in the state. We have a budget that was signed, and I'm still trying to understand why. There's a $2 billion hole in it. So what was the urgency? You know, well, let's get it right. It's not the first time that we've waited to get the budget right. And, you know, when you talk about, well, we want a budget that doesn't have gimmicks and stuff, you almost kind of say, well, isn't that a gimmick to be able to say, I've got $2 billion in concessions, irrespective of who's put them in there, and then say to the people, we've signed a budget early. That budget is not a real budget because we don't have those concessions.
And the man who eventually got the nomination of your party when you ran for governor, Tom Foley, has not been shy about speaking his mind as the process goes forward. But you come to this as a businessman even before politics. In this budget, or even for the paid sick leave bill, how does this affect business? What are you hearing now that you're back in the business community?
You know, Pat, and you hit it right on the head. There is nothing in this budget that I see as a businessman that's going to create those jobs that we've lost. And we know that that's so important to Connecticut. And so what I'm seeing out there is that businesses are, you know, making money. They're starting to come out of the economy, but they're not creating jobs. Paid sick leave doesn't do it. A 20% corporate surcharge on taxes doesn't do it. I'm in an IT business. I, in theory, could run my business almost anywhere in the world, let alone this country. I stay here because this is my state. I have family here and everything like that. More and more businesses are going to start looking at that, looking at decisions. You mentioned my global business. That's something we're doing some research and development right now in California. I can tell you every day I'm getting calls from North Carolina, South Carolina. Come here, bring it here. It's clean, industrial business. We'd love to have you. There is nothing in this budget and nothing that I've seen as a business person, let alone as someone who served in the legislature and the executive branch, that would entice me to grow jobs in Connecticut.
So would you have been able to do it without the tax hikes that he's proposing?
Well, here's what I would have done differently, Laurie, and I'll take it back to the election cycle when this governor said we're going to look at everything's on the table. He was very honest about that, and he said we're going to look at efficiencies, we're going to look at concessions, and then we're going to look at revenue. And if you look at this budget, it's gone the other way. We have revenue. We have a tiered revenue system now with the income tax, with the sales tax. The efficiencies, one could argue there's more spending in this budget. Okay, have we really made the efficiencies that we need to have there? And obviously we know the concessions as of this taping aren't there yet. And it's just very interesting when you look at that whole package on how you would go after it.
But as I said to Colleen, I mean, everyone likes to talk about efficiencies and spending cuts, but then when you bring them up, people express outrage.
But that's the tough part of the job, right? The tough part of the job is to say, yes, I understand, you know, that you don't want to cut your program. I understand this. But what's our goal? Our goal is to get ourselves out of this problem, not by raising revenue, but by getting our house in order, by creating jobs, by getting people back to work, by making Connecticut a place that people want to live in and raise their family in. I don't see that in this budget. And I think the shared sacrifice is to be able to say, across the board, here's what we've done. Let's remember, in this 3 or 4 year recessionary period that we're all coming out of, hopefully, okay, corporations have laid off people. Corporations have cut jobs. Not one state employee has lost a job during that period.
And we go back to the campaign for just a moment. The governor did say at that time, everything's on the table. I don't want to raise taxes, but I might have to. But he also said, I won't shred the safety net. Not that I might have to, I won't. And I won't balance this on the backs of cities and towns. Plan B does just that. Wouldn't it have been more prudent to put it in the same vein as the taxes?
Well, it's possible, Pat. But we have two budgets out there, as far as I'm concerned, right? You have three now. Plan B. You have the governor's budget and the legislature's budget that was passed by the Democratic majority. You have the Republican minority budget that was out there that has no tax revenue, and I think there's an in between there. The revenue side of this budget that you're seeing, which has the tax increases, which has the increase in sales tax, is what we fought in the executive branch in the Rell administration for the last 4 years. The leadership of the House and Senate, same folks, Representative Donovan and Senator Williams. That's what they fought. That was the firewall. The firewall was not to have one-party rule so that you can have that balance. And I would say to you that you need to look at those other things more. You cannot balance this budget on revenue.
In all fairness, the Republican no new taxes budget also assumed the same $2 billion in concessions.
You're absolutely right. And I think that no one wants to lay folks off. Those concessions are important. If you start looking at some of the medical plans, you look at some of the packages that are there, I think you can get to where you got. Are we going to get $2 billion? I'm not sure. And I think the importance is there's got to be some middle ground, and I don't see that happening right now.
How does the passage of the budget without the concession deal done, how does that hinder them? I mean, what other options would they have had they not done that?
Well, I think going back, you start looking at the layoffs. You could start talking about more efficiencies, more consolidation, things of that nature. The point is, I guess going back to the question I think you asked earlier, is what did signing that budget do for you if you don't have all the pieces together? We've heard, the legislature and the governor usually wait till the last moment. Well, that's because there's things to be ironed out. You don't want to, and this is an inside word, an implementer bill, right, that implements $2 billion in changes in this budget, and that's what that's what you're going to have, possibly. Okay, and so I say to you, we talk about honest budgeting, we talk about smoke and mirrors, and it's used in a different context. But to pass or to everyone to get around someone and sign a budget that says, "Hey, here's what we've done," and to have that theory, I'm like, is that honest budgeting?
To return to the first question, you look fit, you look relaxed. Obviously, time off is helping you. You really want to put yourself through a U.S. Senate race?
Well, as I said, Pat, if I have something to lend to any race, I will do that. And maybe that's what we should do with the legislature. Send them back home for a few months and few years, and then bring them back. Maybe they'd get a better perspective and a better look at things.
If you were a gambling man, would you say that this concession deal is going to get done? Or
no, $2 billion, the numbers just don't work. The numbers just don't work. And I think something's got to happen, but I think you're going to have to go back to one of three things. Further cuts, which this budget really doesn't do. In fact, as I said, you could argue it even increases spending. More layoffs than are anticipated, or that dreaded word that the taxes that have been proposed are really the floor and not the ceiling. And if that's the case, you're just putting bad on top of bad.
Interesting. We appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
It's great to be here.
Glad to get your insight once again. Coming up, a conversation about autism and a unique summer camp filling a growing need for Connecticut families.